Hello, everybody. This is Willie Sublet III, founder of RightTouch Solutions, and you are tuned in to the RightTouch Rundown, your weekly dose of operational strategy and nonprofit clarity. I want to welcome you all to the finale of our four-part series on how to stop chasing grants without infrastructure. And if you are here for the first time today, let me let you know something before we go a single step further. You are not late to the party. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. What they say on Hairspray, you've joined a train already in session. So, over the last 3 weeks, we've talked through some real ground together. We walked through it, friends. We have named the cycle that quietly drains teams and busted myths that more grants automatically and magically equals, stability. We walked into the myth reframe of what funders are actually investing in when they invest in you and your organization. We've also gotten practical about grant readiness and the pause where the myth of building it later hides itself. Every one of those conversations has been leading us and building us toward today. Because now we're going to talk about the biggest myth reframe of the whole series. Reframe, myth, bust, either way. And it is the reframe that changes not just how you apply for funding, but how you carry yourself in every conversation with funders from this point forward. So we don't go backwards, we go forward. Whether you're working on your first yes or your fifth yes, or that yes that finally turns into that multi-year commitment. That's the good one. The myth we're busting today, the fourth and final myth of this series, because we may come back and do more myths later, depends on what y'all want, put it in the comments. This one lives in the entire structure of how the nonprofit sector in whole talks about fundraising. The myth we're going to talk about is you have to chase funders at all. Now, every fundraising strategy has been built on this. Every board conversation, every training, retreat, consultant you hire, workshop that's been given says that leaders chase, funders decide, and that is the game. That's it. But I want you to hear me close and hear me well. I am not telling you to stop applying, because that is irresponsible. You are fiduciarily irresponsible as a board member to get that money in. You are supposed to apply. You are supposed to get in front of these funders, make relationships. You're supposed to introduce yourself, tell that story, be in a room, and earn every single yes on your way to building that relationship to partnership that will one day sustain your mission. But there is a big difference, my friends, between applying and chasing. And most of the sector will treat this as if they're the same thing. Willie Sublet is saying it is not. Because I strongly believe, and it is proven, that when infrastructure is real, you do not chase, you get chased. So, let's reframe the myth, okay? Applying is an action when we're talking about grants, right? Chasing is the posture underneath that action. Let's put it in context of two organizations submitting an application to the same funder in the same cycle, right? And even without a single prior conversation on both sides, that funder is going to feel a difference the moment they read and open both applications within the portal. One application is going to come from a place of chasing. That energy is going to be anxious. The narrative may be polished or sometimes over polished when you use those extracurricular bots, if you will. But the operation underneath the story will feel very thin. The budget is not going to line up with the program descriptions. The outcome measurements are plain but vague, or it promises to be built after the grant lands. The timeline will always assume that everything will go right, right? The requested amount is going to be bigger than what the organization already stated that its capacity can hold. Suggesting might not be a good steward. Something feels off across the whole application, even though nothing specific is wrong. Everything's in the right place. Let's go to application number 2. This application comes from a position and a place of position, tongue tied. The energy is grounded. The narrative is very honest. The operations underneath the story are visible. You can literally see it when you're reading it. The budget lines up back to the narrative, the programs. The outcome measurement plan already exists. It's not afterwards. And the application describes what is currently being captured. Plus, the timeline is realistic, with room built in for what might not go perfectly, because it never does. The requested amount will match what the organization already stated it has capacity to deliver. That's a good steward. Nothing feels rushed. Nothing feels retrofitted. The whole application reads like a snapshot of an organization that took the time to already operate in the way it needs to before the funder was ever asked for a hot dime. Remember, it was the same funder, it was the same cycle, the same application window, but completely different positions and postures walking through that application portal. And funders can tell the difference before they even reach the budget page. I can promise you it because I did it myself when I used to be a funder. So, how do we name that unnamed distinction? No problem. Happy to tell you. Chasing is what you do when the application is the entire strategy of your grant process. Positioning is what you do when the application is just one piece of a larger presence you are already building. So that is the whole finale in two sentences. If you just want to stop now and go back. But please don't. Stay with me. I want you to sit with what I just said just for a quick second, because it's going to change everything about how you approach funders this calendar year and going forward. We're going to keep doing the two categories just to really stick it in. Repetition helps you learn. Chasing. This is going to be my chasing hand. It's going to be my positioning hand. Chasing the organization, you build the application. Positioning, you build the organization, and the application naturally expresses itself from what is already existing. Chasing organization writes toward what the funder wants to hear. A positioning organization writes toward what's true, what's already there. A chasing organization will retrofit those numbers in to make it match the narrative. A positioning organization lets the numbers be the narrative. Over time, the two paths do not just look different on paper, they become different in outcome. Let's continue with that. We're going to keep the hands. Don't worry. I love my fourth graders, so we're going to keep our hands together. Chasing organizations spend years chasing. Positioning organization spend a season or two applying, and then something starts to shift, right? Because a well-run organization produces well-built applications. Does not stay unnoticed for very long. The first funder makes an introduction to another program officer they know. You got to look at this. Then that second funder returns for a second cycle because the reporting was so clean, so fresh and so clean. The outcomes were real. Then that third funder reaches out unsolicited because a peer told them, hey, I heard y'all doing some good work over here. How can I be a part? How can I invest in what you're doing? So applying now is an invitation. We all want to be invited to the party that nobody else knows about. So introductions end up replacing cold outreach. And then one day, without ever having stopped applying, the leader realizes they are no longer chasing at all. They are being pursued. They are being flown out. This is what the title of the series has been pointing to the whole time. Not to stop applying, but not to opt out of the funder game completely, because that's insane. Don't do that. But to stop chasing and start positioning. Because positioning is what infrastructure buys you. And infrastructure is what this whole series has been about. So what makes position actually look good? What does it look like? No problem. Let's make it practical. Because a myth reframe without a change in behavior is just a nice idea. And as much as I love my ideas and talking about ideas, I want to give you something to actually do. So here's what positioning looks like on a Friday afternoon in real nonprofit leadership. You apply from readiness, not urgency. Before you write the narrative, you get honest about whether your organization can actually honestly answer the questions the funder will ask after they say yes. If the answer is no, you do not skip the application. You do not scrap the funder. You reset that internal timeline on your infrastructure so that the next application from your organization is in a positioning application, not a chasing one. Remember what I say? We're not getting rid of, we're just making sure we're ready. Okay? You show up between the ask, not with a request. With an update, a shared outcome, a quick note when something changes. Because relationship that only exists during those application season, that's just transactional. And transactions do not renew. Positioning organizations understand that, my friends. The middle of the year is where the next yes is actually earned. Let them know what's going on. Hey, just quick check-in, okay? Now, you let the infrastructure carry the story for you. In a chasing application, the narrative has to do all that heavy lifting because there's nothing really underneath it. In a positioning application, the narrative and the operations are saying the same thing. So application is pretty much the same across the board. The financials match that same story. The outcomes match that mission. The reporting match that promise. You see how it all works together? Funders stop having to take you at your word because they can see it. They can feel it and they know it. Those are not new items for your to-do list. These are mental shifts, board shifts, mindset shifts, and how you hold every funder conversation from now on. No more excuses, my friend. It's time to get busy. Now, I want you to take a moment with you before I get on out of here and let you have your day back. Over the last 4 weeks, we talked through some hard truths that the more grants will not shave a shaky organization. That funders are investing in something more specific than your mission statement and your story. That the systems have to be built before the money comes. And that there is a difference between chasing and positioning that changes the entire trajectory of a nonprofit funding future. If you've been with me for all 4 weeks of this series, I want to thank you very genuinely. I'm real serious. I thank y'all for hanging with me, even though, right now I'm talking to myself, but I know some of y'all are listening. You gave me your time on some of these conversations that were not always easy to sit with because it may seem like I'm coming at you. I promise you I'm not. It's all love over here. Now, don't take that lightly. If this is your first episode and you're wondering what the last 3 had to say, take your time. Go on back. You can do it out of order if you want to. This is your YouTube channel. But I kind of suggest starting with episode 21 and walk the path with me. Either way, I want you to leave this series with something you didn't have 4 weeks ago. Not just a checklist that gets put with all the other checklists you've made. A different way of seeing the whole picture. And that is what makes the difference between reading about change, chasing, and actually being changed, positioning. Well, as I said, I'm going to keep it short for you today, as short as I can. Y'all know I've been talking. I want to thank you for tuning in to the RightTouch Rundown, and thank you for closing this series with me. If this conversation helped you see funding differently, share it with another leader who is navigating growth, transition, or change. Don't you gatekeep. We don't do that around here. Until then, I will see you next week. Take care of yourself, take care of your team, and remember, mission moves best with structure. Talk to you soon, my friends. Bye-bye.